You have been sold a specific lie since the day you got your first paycheck. The culture practically guarantees that if you just hit that magic $1 million mark in your retirement account, you cross the finish line. You hand in your 2 weeks notice, you pack up your desk, and you are financially free forever. But if you are a salaried employee grinding through the modern American economy right now, I need to be brutally honest with you. That $1 million finish line is a ghost. Inflation, exploding healthcare premiums, and the sheer length of a modern retirement have completely shattered the old math. For a W-2 worker today, hitting $1 million does not make you rich. In a lot of cities, it barely keeps you securely in the middle class. Believing the old myth is exactly what traps high-earning professionals into working straight through their 60s, shocked when they realize the math does not add up. We have to stop guessing. We are going to strip the emotion, the panic, and the outdated financial advice out of your future. Right now, we are looking at the brutal, unarguable math. I am going to show you exactly how the retirement system actually works and how to calculate your true freedom number, so you know the exact day you can safely walk away from your job for good. Most W-2 workers are running a marathon in the pitch black. You clock in, you put in your 40 hours, you auto-route a random percentage of your paycheck into a target date fund, and you just blindly hope it all magically works out by the time you turn 65. You are essentially trusting a financial system run by guys sitting behind heavy mahogany tables on Wall Street, crossing your fingers that they designed a fair game for you. They didn't. They designed a system to extract fees and keep you working. Without a specific mathematical target, you aren't actually planning for retirement. You are just guessing. You are throwing money into a void and praying. We need to turn on the lights. We need to establish your exact finish line. And to do that, we have to look at the 4% rule. Back in the 1990s, a group of finance professors at Trinity University decided to run the numbers. They looked at decades of brutal market history. They factored in the absolute worst economic crises of the century, the inflation spikes of the 1970s, the sudden stock market crashes, and the massive bull runs. They wanted to find the exact percentage of your investments you could pull out every single year in retirement without ever draining your account to zero over a 30-year timeline. The magic number they found was 4%. Here is what that actually means for your life today. If you hit that legendary $1 million mark in your retirement accounts, you can safely withdraw 4% of it in year one. That is $40,000. Stop and let that sink in. $40,000 a year. That is roughly $3,300 a month. If you are living in a major American city, still paying off a mortgage, or facing the reality of out-of-pocket medical bills, $1 million does not buy you a life of luxury. It buys you a painfully strict budget. It buys you a life where you are still checking price tags at the grocery store and stressing over a broken water heater. This is why the middle class is constantly squeezed. They are chasing an outdated trophy. The math of wealth does not care about your feelings, and it certainly does not care about what $1 million used to be worth in 1999. It only cares about the multiplier. If you want to step away from the corporate grind and actually maintain a comfortable, secure lifestyle, let's say you want to spend $100,000 a year in retirement to cover property taxes, decent healthcare, travel, and actually enjoying the last third of your life. You do not need $1 million. You need to take your desired annual income and multiply it by 25. To safely spend $100,000 a year, you need $2.5 million fully invested. The 25x multiplier is the inverse of the 4% rule. It is the ultimate reality check. It completely shatters the illusion of the $1 million goalpost and replaces it with cold, hard reality. But this reality is exactly what gives you control. Once you know the exact math, you are no longer a victim of a vague financial system. You have a target. It stops being an emotional panic and simply becomes an engineering problem. Your immediate task right now is to calculate your personal finish line. Grab a pen and write down the exact annual income you want to live on when you finally walk away from your desk. Subtract what you conservatively expect the government to pay you in Social Security. Take that final remaining number and multiply it by 25. That number staring back at you is your true target. That is the exact price tag of your freedom. Everything you do from this day forward, every raise you negotiate, every budget cut you make, every investment you automate, is entirely focused on hitting that specific number. Let's look at the exact progression of your life at every level of the corporate ladder. When you first start out as an entry-level employee, you probably live with roommates, you drive a beat-up car, and you are just happy to cover your rent. But then you grind, you get promoted, you hit middle management. Eventually, maybe you make it to the senior level. You finally get the corner office, you sit behind the heavy mahogany table, and you start buying luxury items to signal to the world that you have officially arrived. On paper, and to everyone looking at you, you look incredibly successful. But behind the scenes, you are suffocating. Why do corporate employees making $150,000 a year still wake up in a cold sweat when they think about retirement? Because of a vicious psychological trap called lifestyle creep. Every single time their paycheck goes up, their baseline expenses rise to perfectly match it. They don't actually build wealth. They just build a much more expensive golden cage. Let's look at the absolute terror of the math here. specifically tying it back to that 25x multiplier we just established. Imagine you work relentlessly for 2 solid years. You take on extra projects, you navigate the toxic office politics, and you finally score a promotion that gives you a clean $10,000 raise in your annual take-home pay. You feel a massive wave of relief. You feel like you finally won the game. So, what do? You immediately celebrate by financing a nicer SUV, upgrading to an apartment in a better zip code, and moving your Friday night dinners to high-end steakhouses. Without even realizing it, you just increased your annual cost of living by exactly $10,000. Here is the brutal, unforgiving reality of that decision. Based on the 25x rule, increasing your yearly lifestyle by $10,000 means you just pushed your retirement finish line completely out of reach. To safely generate that extra $10,000 a year in retirement, you need an additional $250,000 in your investment portfolio. Stop and process that. By upgrading your car and your apartment today, you just added $250,000 to the total amount you need to save before you can ever safely quit your job. You worked late nights, you sacrificed your weekends, and you fought tooth and nail for that promotion, only to chain yourself to your corporate desk for another 5 to 7 years. You did not get richer. You just made your life significantly more expensive to maintain. If you want to break this cycle and actually buy your freedom, you have to implement a hard, permanent cap on your standard of living today. You must absolutely decouple your spending from your earning. You need to find a comfortable baseline where your survival needs are met, where you have a little room for joy, and then you freeze it. You lock it in. From this day forward, when you get a promotion, an annual bonus, or a massive tax refund, you do not upgrade your life. You do not buy the luxury watch. You do not move into the luxury high-rise. You route 100% of that new money directly into your brokerage accounts. You continue to live like the manager while banking the executive salary. Every single dollar of new income should never be used to inflate your lifestyle. It should only be used to aggressively buy back the remaining years of your life. There is a fatal flaw in human psychology when it comes to long-term planning. Our brains are hardwired to anchor heavily to the present moment. When the average middle-class employee sits down to map out their retirement, they almost always calculate their future needs using today's prices. You look at your life right now and think, okay, my mortgage, groceries, car insurance, and occasional vacations cost me about $60,000 a year. So, if I can just generate $60,000 a year in retirement, I will be perfectly fine. That cognitive bias is a financial death sentence. It absolutely guarantees you will run out of money in your 70s. You are completely ignoring the silent, invisible tax that aggressively destroys wealth over time: inflation. Let's break down the actual math of how inflation massacres a static pile of cash. Historically, inflation averages around 3% a year. Using a simple mathematical principle called the rule of 72, a 3% inflation rate means the cost of living will double exactly every 24 years. That means if you are 40 years old today, and it costs you $60,000 to maintain your current standard of living, by the time you reach traditional retirement age, you will need over $120,000 a year just to buy the exact same groceries, pay for the exact same electricity, and put the exact same gas in your car. Your money buys half of what it used to. This is why hoarding cash in a traditional bank account feels emotionally safe, but is actually a guaranteed mathematical loss. If your money is sitting in a savings account earning 1 or 2%, while the cost of existing goes up by 3 or 4%, you are bleeding purchasing power every single second of the day. You are slowly, quietly going broke. But standard inflation is only the first half of the trap. We have to talk about the absolute nightmare of the American healthcare system. When you are a W-2 employee, your employer severely subsidizes your health insurance premiums. You pay a fraction of the true cost. But the day you hand in your company badge, that shield completely disappears. Most employees falsely assume Medicare will just sweep in and cover everything when they turn 65. It does not. Medicare has premiums, massive deductibles, copays, and gaping coverage holes for things like dental, vision, and long-term care. The latest financial data is terrifying. A 65-year-old couple retiring today needs an estimated $172,000 strictly to cover out-of-pocket healthcare expenses through the remainder of their lives. And that number does not even include the potential cost of a nursing home or assisted living, which can easily vaporize $10,000 a month. Healthcare inflation grows significantly faster than normal inflation. If you simply leave your retirement funds in cash or ultra-conservative bonds, hoping to preserve your capital, you will be utterly crushed by the medical bills of your late 70s. Your money has to aggressively grow just to tread water against the skyrocketing cost of getting older. Here is the exact, step-by-step framework to protect yourself. First, you have to stop hoarding excessive cash. Cash is for short-term emergencies, not long-term security. You need to calculate your bare-bones survival expenses for 3 to 6 months and park that specific amount in a high-yield savings account. That is your emergency firewall. If you lose your job or your transmission blows, you tap the firewall. but every single dollar beyond that emergency fund must be deployed into the market. You need to aggressively move your capital into broad market index funds, like those tracking the S&P 500 or the total stock market. When you buy an index fund, you are buying fractional ownership in the most powerful, profitable corporations on earth. When inflation hits, what do those corporations do? They raise the prices of their products. They pass the cost on to the consumer. And because you own the stock of those companies, your portfolio value and your dividend payouts grow right alongside those price hikes. The stock market is not a casino for the wealthy to play in. It is the only accessible, historically proven vehicle the middle class has to ensure their money grows faster than the devastating cost of future living. Knowing the terrifying math of retirement is completely useless if you rely on your own willpower to execute the solution. Human motivation is a highly limited, deeply unreliable resource. You get tired, you get stressed out by your boss, and you get constantly distracted by the immediate demands of your daily life. If you wait until the 28th of the month, hoping you have enough raw discipline left over to manually transfer a chunk of your paycheck into an investment account, you will fail. You will find an excuse to spend it. You do not need more motivation. You need a mechanical, emotionless system. Let's look at how a mechanical system actually replaces your human labor. The heavy lifting of wealth creation is never done by your back or your long hours in the office. It is done by compound growth. If you are 30 years old today and you force just $500 a month into a broad market index fund, you are not just putting away $6,000 a year. Assuming a standard, historically conservative 7% return, that simple $500 habit explodes into over $600,000 by the time you turn 65. And here is the truly shocking part of that math. Out of that final $600,000, you only actually contributed $210,000 from your own sweat and labor. The remaining nearly $400,000 was generated entirely by the math itself. The market worked the night shift for you. But the math can only do the heavy lifting if you consistently, relentlessly feed the machine. This is how you guarantee your escape. You have to automate the entire process at the payroll level. Log into your company's HR portal or your primary banking app today. Set up a direct, automatic transfer into your retirement or brokerage accounts that triggers the exact same morning your paycheck clears. You need to ghost the money before you even wake up. Do not give yourself the chance to look at a high account balance and feel rich. Pay your future self first, and force your present self to figure out how to live on whatever is left over. When you automate your investments, you remove the emotion, you remove the temptation, and you mathematically guarantee the exact day you can permanently walk away from your desk.